Thank you so much. It's great to see all of you. A funny anecdote to follow this electrification panel that leads into this. In my old life, I was a street racer and set the cannonball run record across the United States in both internal combustion and electric cars. But what most people don't know is that the original cannonball run record across the United States in 1915 was set because car manufacturers did not know how to market internal combustion privately owned vehicles to the public. And so they thought that if they sent a race car driver across the United States in an internal combustion car, that he could demonstrate that it was safer, more efficient, and polluted less than horses or trains. And 100 years later, here we are talking about sustainability and greenwashing. So I'm not going to lie, I don't look at the labels of the clothes I buy, and I don't care very much about the sustainability of those clothes. However, when it comes to cars or flying or trains, I care very deeply about it. And I am always deeply offended when I find out on the ride that it's not actually a green vehicle or a green power source. And I'm frequently asked by friends who ask me why I own a Tesla if I care about it. Actually, I do care. And then they want to debate the supply chain, the minerals, the power production. So today, we have three people who are, and this is rare, honest and credible, to discuss their sustainability efforts and greenwashing. So the titles are long, so I'm going to have to read them. Forgive me. We have Jessica Persson, Head of Venture Capital and Mergers and Acquisitions at the Scania Group. We have François Dossa, Executive Director of Strategy and Sustainability at Jaguar Land Rover. And Raymond Zheng, my old friend, Senior Managing Director, Corporate Venture and Open Innovation at Honda Innovations, Silicon Valley. So I'll begin with Mr. Dossa. Tell us a little bit about your sustainability efforts at JLR.
Yes, thank you for your question. I think that it's a very key point. So for us, I'd like to start with Tata. We are a Tata company, and our chairman decided that the Tata Group, which is one of the top 20 group in the world, is going to be the most sustainable group in the world. And I don't know if you know this gentleman, Alex, is very serious when he says that you'd rather move in the right direction. So it means that the 100 top companies of the Tata Group has to become the most sustainable in their area. So we take it very seriously. This is one thing. So it comes from the very top of the company. The other thing is that personally, I personally have no kids. And in a way, I'm happy not to have kids, because what is the planet that we are living them? I think that we really have a responsibility on sustainability, and we have to take it very, very seriously. So if I mix the two conditions here, I think that I'm very happy to be in charge of sustainability at Jaguar Land Rover. So we committed to the SBTi targets, and the commitment was that we would be zero carbon in 2039. In 2039, I will be retired. So there is no point, I think, of making this kind of commitment. So we decided to make a commitment by 2030, reduction of scope 1 and 2 by 46%, and scope 3 by 54%. And with very clear projects, so we have 111 projects. Every year we deliver the project, and we can show this to all of you. So this is not washing, this is, I think, real things happening. We do materiality, of course, because our customers don't want leather anymore, so we are working on new materials, the longevity of the materials. I'm sure that my colleagues do exactly the same thing. So this is a journey that we really started. We are committed to deliver all of this.
Ms. Persson, what are you working on at Scania?
Yes, I think without transportation, life as we know it wouldn't even exist. It's a cornerstone for every single healthy economy. We need it to secure social and economic growth. But as you say, it has huge negative effects when it comes to pollution, when it comes to air, when it comes to congestions. And being part of that problem, we have to solve it. At Scania, we approach it from three very concrete areas. We look at impact. Where do we have the most impact? Where do we have the risk and opportunities to handle those? And then we put targets in place which are science-based and in everything we do. One of those examples is then CO2 reductions in our own operation. We have set a target from 2015 to 2025 is going to be reduced by 50%. We are already at 44%, so we are on track on reaching that. But we will, of course, not stop there. We will continue. It's like, yeah, it's a journey, and we'll take it step by step.
Raymond?
Of course, let me just start by saying Honda's vision is carbon neutral by 2050, but that's good knowing that we actually used to be the #1 combustion engine maker in the world. That's a
Great combustion engines, Raymond.
yeah, but that's a lot of challenges, as you can see, right? So, so of course, this is like incremental steps. For example, we are committing to do 2035 in North America, so we take these steps, right? So where I'm sitting in terms of sustainability is we are part of the corporate venturing team, right? So we work with startups and external innovators to bring new technologies into our fold, right? Thinking about strategic investment or opportunity to work things together as a POC. There are three kind of areas in my mind I'm thinking about, right, is how we address this, three main components. One is carbon neutrality in the emission side of things. Second one is kind of recycling, circular economy, resource recycling. And then the third one is energy transition, right? So those are the three things I'm thinking about. How do we make sure the emission is carbon neutral? How do we reuse some of the resources so they're sustainable? And how do we find energy sources that actually are zero kind of carbon neutral? Just give you some example. We actually, being the group that's doing strategic investments, we recently, not recently, the last year or so, we invest in each of these some cases, and we continue to look for more. For instance, thinking about resource circulation, we invest in a company for battery recycling, and that's in Japan. And we also invested into a e-fuel company, investing into kind of a sustainable aviation fuel. That's a German company. And the last one you guys could very exciting is it's a new source of energy, nuclear fusion company, actually based in Israel.
Francois mentioned Scope 2 and Scope 3, but I think there are people in the audience who may not be familiar with the greenhouse gas protocols. Could you break them down?
Yeah, so that's a greenhouse protocol. It was really about looking at Scope 1 is if you're enterprise, if you're a company or any company, is what are the emissions that are directly on the assets that are owned by you, right? For example, maybe for Honda or other OEM is the office space, the factories, how much carbon footprint you actually put out. Scope 2 is actually the source of energy coming to run your operation, like power and gas and things like that. So how much carbon footprint in that scope. And Scope 3 is also outside of the ownership, but except for the energy, right? Thinking about the supply chain, how do you reduce the carbon footprint for the transportation of parts coming to you? So that's kind of a three scope that we're looking at.
Let's get to the greenwashing part. A company that makes cars that I love, that I shall not name, a few years ago, released a vehicle that was a hybrid. It was beautiful, it was great, but the marketing campaign said that it was electrified. And they got absolutely assaulted in the media. It seemed like a perfect case of greenwashing. And to be clear, greenwashing is to exaggerate the sustainability or green tech of your product. I'm not entirely convinced they did anything wrong because their vehicle did go from being purely internal combustion to electrified, but not fully electric. Ms. Persson, do you think company X, we shall not name them, did anything wrong?
I would say like this, I don't know the circumstances. I won't go into comment on specific companies. But in general, I think it's super important to have a transparency. I mean, we try to work with that all the time, especially when it comes to this nascent industry. I mean, things are always evolving. And I think that we have to take a stepwise approach. As long as you always continuously to explain what you do, that's all good. But one thing that I really want to stress, especially in EcoMotion and around the world, it's this, we have at Scania, dare to try, manage the risk. And for us, that is super important. Because what scares me more than anything in the world right now is that we have so many bright people everywhere, but you have your, like, I can't do this for the communication department or for the legal department or for whatever reason. And I think that it's super important for big companies or for startup companies to kind of continue. And I mean, if we really want to have a change, if we want to have deep tech, disruptive change, innovation on a big level, we can't have everyone sitting there. It's like, it's better I just don't do anything because I might get a bad review or get bashed or whatever. So at least within Scania, we want to see change. We want to have disruptive change. And then we dare to try manage the risk. My comment on this one.
I mean, one of the things I've noticed, and I used to work in the autonomous vehicle sector, is that the marketing department is often not having sufficient conversations with engineering and product. And the engineers and product teams are developing the right thing. But the marketing people get a little enthusiastic with the right intentions and then begin a process that leads to washing. So, you know, how do we improve that process? It seems to be an organizational cultural process. Francois, any comment?
Yeah, I think that, you know, Alex, you see in most of the companies today, sustainability sits at the executive committee, which was not the case. So today, we can really influence all the business in the company, which again was not the case. So what you described, and when you asked Jessica, I think that it would not happen today. Because again, you know, we understand sustainability very differently today. And again, it's positioned in the organization, in the governance, in another position. So I think that this is a big change. Just a comment on what Raymond said. In our case, scope 1, 2, and 3. So scope 1 and 2 is 2% of our emission, and scope 3 is 98%. So everything is about the supply chain, how we talk to our suppliers, all the supply chain, and also this is why for us it's important to be here today, because we hope to find technology startups in Israel that will help us also to influence not only our company, but our suppliers, supply chain, to work together in ecosystem in order to work in this sustainability agenda.
All right, Raymond, I'm going to go off our notes now,
Okay.
but it's an easy question. You lead venture capital for Honda Innovations. When companies pitch you, and walking around here, I saw it happen a lot. Do you find that companies innocently kind of wash their technology trying to get your attention to seek investor money, or that they innocently exaggerate their own capabilities in order to be classified as green tech?
Well, startups has dreams, right? So I wouldn't, flog them for bringing their dreams to us and try to work together. About this distinction, let me digress just a little bit.
Digress away.
Right. I think marketing is not my forte, so I wouldn't be able to comment the intricacy of that. And I know it's complicated, and everybody, have rooms to improve, of course. But I think something else is more important and relevant is how do you, in this sustainability, how do you actually measure against each other and having on the same page, right? So in my perspective, I see a lot of startups start, bringing in technologies that can help enterprises to measure the footprints and, scope 1, 2, and 3. And that's great, right? And I love to see more. But more importantly, I think everybody, the industry, the government, and even between countries should bring together the same level and same page. How you measure these footprints. And I think that's a more important question to have. Once you know how to measure it, then you can talk about how to use marketing correctly.
Have any of you seen any startups providing such tools that would move the ball forward in a meaningful way?
Many.
Have you invested in them?
Not yet.
When might we see something useful that will allow the good actors to coalesce around a common set of metrics?
I don't know, to be honest.
Spoken like a true venture capitalist. All right, let's get to the part no one wants to talk about but me. In the autonomous vehicle sector, we've had a severe problem with autono washing, which was the marketing of vehicles and technologies as more autonomous than they actually are. And as a Tesla owner, I can tell you, I know exactly what that's all about. And the entire self-driving industry and even manufacturers of just driver assistance has been living under the shadow of claims by Tesla about cars being fully self-driving just a few months from now. Every company that has told the truth about the pace and cost of developing autonomous technology has been declared, late or slow or a failure because they don't meet the promises made by a distant actor that has put out a lot of hype. So, in recent years, a set of best practices has emerged around the testing of autonomous vehicles. And so companies that put vehicles on the road, on public streets, with people, have come to a general consensus about the kind of training and safety required of a safety operator behind the wheel. And they've done this so when they're asked by public officials, are you actually autonomous and are you operating safely, they could point these best practices. Before you invest, or any of you invest, in a tech startup offering tools for metrics, is there potential merely to come up with a list of best practices? And an example would be, if a vehicle is a hybrid, is it cool to call it electrified? Yes or no? It's a very basic question. So are there best practices that you might be able to agree that we might see before we come to actual metrics, voluntarily? Jessica?
Yeah, I think that already today, for example, I think we were the first company in our industry already a few years ago to set science-based targets that are backed and approved by the Science-Based Target Initiatives. I think that is a super good example. It's voluntarily, but we have set some standards, and with the Greenhouse Gas Protocol is another one. Coming back to my earlier point there, also a little bit, we have to think or be mindful about that. There's always a trade-off again between innovation and also the cost of bureaucracy and too much standards all over the place. So I think that it's good that we have standards because it costs enormous amount of money to put so much investments into hydrogen and electrified and you name it, we've been in all of them. And it thinks that we need to get money back, or all our stakeholders need to have return on investments. And you can only get that if you kind of know what is differentiating between good and bad products. So to some degree, yes, but I also don't want to see a society where we have tons of metrics all over the place and it's too expensive for startups to get in there and everyone else is just stopped by bureaucracy. So.
Francois, any closing remarks?
No, but to your question on the autonomy, if we fly back 5 years ago, we thought that in 5 years, today all the cars will be autonomous, blah, 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 blah. And then we realized that things are not like that. It's not that easy. And then, then we started to have level 2 plus, and 3. So, it also takes time. So I'm not sure that, it's a question of bad marketing or something like that. It's also that we need time to understand all these new technologies. This is, for me, this is not an evolution. This is a revolution. If you think to the OEMs, we are revolutionized by technology. And it's not that from one day to the other, you know exactly what is good in marketing, how you do it, et cetera, et cetera. It takes time. So I think it's a little bit what happened. What I like is exactly what you said. We can be volunteer. At SBTI, we did the same thing that you, because we understand that it is important. So even if it's not compulsory, we try to do it, to go in this direction. That's about the journey that we all mentioned.
Raymond, closing remarks?
Yeah, so there are two things. While you were talking about autonomy and best practices, that come across my mind is this level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? I think the industry had gone through a kind of a hype cycle, right? All the OEMs building consumer-based cars realize, and it's actually good for the industry, actually for consumers as well, for safety, is there's a step. We needed to get consumers to get used to running, from a manual to semi-automatic to automatic and automation, right? So I think it's a natural progress that has to take place, and getting people so familiar with from a fully manual driving car to a, in a certain condition, you can be hands-off, right? And it's under certain conditions, the car could be more capable, and then you can be eyes off, and then you can be minds off at the end, right? So that's a bit of far way to go. But I think if you look at sort of what Honda was doing in they announced their level 3 driving, which is kind of eyes off in certain conditions, traffic jam, for instance. That's sort of a progression that I think was necessary to start earning the consumer's trust into the autonomy. The final closing thoughts I have here is sustainability. Thank you, by the way, for touching those two issues of autonomy and also sustainability, because for us, it's important to have zero fatality and zero carbon footprint for everybody here, right? It takes a village to for everybody, for startups and corporates to work together. And that's why us, the Honda Innovation, and also the program of Honda Accelerator Venture, it's out here working and looking for startups and looking for opportunities together so that we can offer and they can also take back some of these, so that we can exchange and work together to create this sustainable world for ourselves.
So I guess I won't be pitching you my coal-powered race car will not work in this conference. Thank you so much, each of you, for coming today.